सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः। गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुरेव परं ब्रह्मा तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Let's chant the first shloka of Vivekachudamani. Sarva Vedanta Siddhanta Gocharam Tamagocharam Govindam Paramanandam Sadgurum Pranatosmyaham Sadgurum Pranatosmyaham. So we had a break last week due to Labor Day retreat. But the week before that, one question we tackled right after the bat was, what is this bondage that's spoken of? Out of the 7 questions that we started with, first one was, what is this bondage? Because the moment we say that I need liberation, the presupposition to that is I am bound in some way. There is no liberation if I'm bound. Therefore, the bondage we find could be in my mind, where I think the external people around me are the ones binding me. Could be situations I'm thrown in that have adversely affected me. But none of these are the Vedantic way of thinking. Vedanta clearly tells me it's not any circumstances or people or even karmas that bind me in any way. It is completely this ignorance. This idea that I have that I am this mind, this body, this intellect. And it's manifesting as I am Hari Chaitanya, for instance. That's the biggest ignorance. That is my biggest obstacle. That is what binds me. That's what makes me do actions for the bloating of this ego. That's what makes me go through happiness and sorrow and guilt and greed and lust and anger and jubilation and triumph and failure. All of these are wrapped into that. Living that for lifetimes and lifetimes, I find myself right here, right now. So we like to call ourselves Vedantins. That's what we say, right? Chinmaya Mission Sampradaya, so we're Vedantins. Unless I understand that the goal of my life is to let go of this identity of the BMI, I cannot call myself a Vedantin. If goals of my life are that I want to pamper this ego by earning a lot of money, I am a Charvaka. I'm a materialist at that point. If I think there's nothing out there beyond this void, it's just a void out there, nothing beyond this body, mind, intellect, no such thing as some substratum, I'm a Bauddhavadi at that point. If I say that, yes, my entire existence is for something higher, but it's not about liberation or moksha as Shastra gives it, I just want to be in Svarga in my next life, that is nothing but the Purva Mimamsa type of thinking. So what a Vedantin is very specific. It first starts with the mindset. So now we'll go back to the beginning of our text that we're looking at. In Vivekachudamani, if we look at this second shloka, it's one of the most famous shlokas in the entire text. Because we're going out of order a bit, and because the text is so vast, I want to hit those points that take us in a logical sequence, since we don't have time to go through the entire text. So we first started with our first question of what is bondage? After seeing that ignorance is the problem, exasperated by this powers of Maya, which completely cover up what is the actual reality, projecting some other priorities and false reality on top of it. Now we come to what is the way my mind has to shift then? Is there a progression I have to take? So let me chant this second shloka right here. Jantunam narajanma durlabhamataha pumstvam tato viprata तस्मात् वैदिकधर्ममार्गपरता विद्वत्वमस्मात् पुरम् आत्मानात्मविवेचनं स्वनुभवः ब्रह्मात्मना संस्थितिः मुक्तिर्नो शतजन्मकोटिसुकृतैः पुण्यैर्विना लभ्यते जन्तूनां नरजन्म दुर्लभमतः Durlabham, how difficult is it to attain what? Attain this human birth. We say populations rising rapidly. That's true, but this human birth is the rarest of opportunities. Just the very fact that you and I are born as humans in this life means it is nothing but the result of great punya done in the past. That is the only way that we come to this point as human beings. In Ramcharitmanas, it's given there's something like 8.4 million types of yonis or wombs that we can find ourselves in. Out of those 8.4 million, a human is but one of all of those. And we've made it. Now, does this guarantee that we progress and we have a human birth in the next life and the next life until we get liberated? No. It's very possible that because of various attachments, because of this deep seated ignorance, I can always devolve into a different animal. Furthermore, what does it mean to even be living a human life? Are we living like humans right now? Think about it. It has to be cultivated over time. Because when a baby is born, for instance, what is the dharma of a baby? What does a baby do? The baby eats, sleeps, poops, eats, poops, sleeps, poops, sleeps. There's one that's always common there. But that's what pretty much a baby does. Now, what does an animal do? Eats, sleeps, poops, eats, sleeps, poops. The animal does the same thing. There's a certain point that we have something else to strive for, personal goals that we have, people that we want to live for, that our priorities evolve from what they are when we're children and babies. Now, that doesn't mean we're more refined, though, as we get older. As Bhajagovindam tells us, Balastavat Krida Saktaha, that when I'm a child, I love to play with toys and do childish things. Do I ever grow out of that, though? Where when I'm young, it's Hot Wheels cars that I want. When I get older, it's a Tesla and a Mustang and all these things. My toys get bigger, but they still remain as toys to me. I can't say I've truly evolved. It's if that is what my goal is. Evolution of a human being means there's really something higher to go for there. That's the very first step in a spiritual journey. That's what can separate someone who is wanting more for life, thinking deeper, having goals that are more refined, versus someone like me who really just wants to fill my stomach, enjoy the world around me, have a few good friends, and call that a life. One of them leads through hardship and self effort to one goal. The other one keeps me stagnant where I am, simply building vasanas upon vasanas. Not a janma. Am I living like an actual human then? Now, the next word is often misconstrued. Pumstvam. Pumstvam, it says more rare than a human birth is someone that has manhood. So Hariji is Bhagavan Sri Adi Shankaracharya ji saying only men get moksha. No, that's not what's meant. This is not meant in the gender way. It's more of an archetype where someone who is daring, courageous, has this deep inclination to want to grab life fully and make sure they succeed, whatever challenges may come. That's characterized as pumstvam in the Sanskritam language. It's given masculine form right there. Now, when Puja Gurudev would teach Vivekachudamani in his videos, you got to watch this section on this shloka. He says it's not confined to any one gender because there are many manly women and many womanly men. For instance, when we're at camps at Mangalam and there's like a snake sighting near the cabins or somewhere, we'll have a group of kids rush into the dining hall. It's usually during meals time is when this happens. They'll come in. No one in their right mind comes to me saying, how do you do something about it? Okay? They know better. You directly go to Sanchanaji and you say, hey, please do something about this. She'll put down her fork, pick up a shovel, and then go out there fearlessly. And she'll say, dude, do you want to come? I'll say, no, you just give me the report later. I don't really, this isn't my thing. So when Puja Gurudev says there are many manly women and many womanly men, I feel like he was definitely talking about me and Sanjanaji in the future. In both ways, we're like that. So Pumstvam is not confined to the physical gender. It's that mindset and that daring spirit within that individual. Now, you'll find whenever people like the Greeks came to Bharat, they would keep these journals and logs. The Greek culture places a very big premium on masculinity, on being very daring, courageous, this and that. So when they came, and I think they came to parts of Maharashtra and all the way to Bengal even, when they saw these Hindu scholars who would sit in the ashramas and study, these subjective scientists, they labeled the Hindu scholars as effeminate, is what they said. Because they said real men are the ones that go and fight and hunt and gather and all of this. Here are these guys doing equations and with their Sanskritam and science and all these things. That's a misconception based on culture versus lack of culture. In ninth grade in Hindu culture, the first topic the children go through is Prakriti versus Vikriti. Prakriti is that kind of culture which is formidable, which is progressive, which evolves. Vikriti is that kind of a culture which devolves because there is a lack of thinking and it's completely focused on what is the short term benefit for us right now. So Pumstam really comes even more than just courageous and daring. It is what is needed for the time, what is being done to that effect. So even if the world may characterize what the culture is as effeminate and this and that, we had the most advanced civilization in human history. I say that without a doubt. Bumstvam, that daring courage to look within, to uncover every stone, that is what got us there. That's the Hindu spirit. So Narajanma is rare. Having that Bumstvam is even more rare. More rare than that is having a sattvic attitude towards life. Sattvic attitude towards life, that which is characterized by calmness, cheerfulness, seeking knowledge, that's a sattvic mindset. Now, every one of us has various preponderances of the three gunas. Some of us like to be active. When it comes down to sitting, I say come to study group or things, very reluctant to do so. They say, I'd rather give me some seva to do and I'll do it. You want me to build bookshelves? You want me to change the scenery in the back right there? You want me to go and round up people? You want me to come to camp and work? I'm willing to do all that, but for the life of me, do not tell me to come to study group or your lectures because that will put me to sleep. They're honest with me, and I appreciate that. So we have different preponderances. There are some that will love the intellectual aspect of what we do in the mission, but when it comes to putting time to doing something physically minded, really tough for them to do. We come with all different kinds of temperaments. Now, given that this is the case, the mindset that is needed for a spiritual seeker is one where I'm able to pause, reflect, learn from the past, and then move forward acting wisely. That is a sattvic disposition. Now, the funny thing here is sattva and tamas look very similar. If you see two people sitting on a sofa, they're both just sitting there. On the outside, it can look like they're both the same. One person could be sitting there in a sattvic mindset, thinking, deliberating what to do, and they have a clear mind and a clean mind as well. The other person, even though they're just sitting there, it could be fully tamasic. It could be that they're entertaining vulgarities or they're full of jealousy and greed and anger. It could be all these different things. So it's really hard to tell from the outside that someone just behaving a certain way doesn't make one sattvic. It has to be a complete change internally as well. Now, different roles require different kinds of gunas. Before I became a brahmachari, I worked as a sales operations analyst at a tech company for 2 years. So it was a very fast-paced kind of a job. It was exciting, super exciting. So you would have leads we would give the salespeople the leads based on the analytics, number crunching, because they're good at talking, not much else. So these sales guys would get on the phone for hours a day and talk and meet with people and take them to games and stuff like this. And the way it worked, you got 10% commission on every sale that you make. So we would have all the emails with us of all their transaction, all their communications, and then we'd make sure they got their commissions and things. So one guy on our sales team, he worked really hard. He made a $1 million deal with a big company. So 10% one-time commission is what? $100,000 on that. So I had to cut him the check. So he sent me his entire email communication. Going through the emails, just I was curious, how did he make this sale? I was shocked to see that he would have an email sent to them at 7 a.m., then responding to them by 10 a.m., one more communication with some kind of draft of a proposal by 1 p.m., then again at 5 p.m., one more checkup on it, then again 10 p.m., one more communication that he'd make, then again 2 a.m., one more communication, 4 a.m., one other thing was an international client, and then 7 a.m. again the next day. This was going on for 3 months, the communications. When I saw him in person, I said, dude, are you a vampire? Like, you did not sleep, it seems, for 3 whole months. You have a family, you have everything. You put your whole life just to make this sale. And he said, dude, how else can you earn $100,000 in 3 months? And I said, yeah, that's a good point right there. That tenacity to seek what he wanted. Now, we say sattva is needed for a spiritual seeker, all right? It doesn't apply to all contexts. If I'm the CEO of that company and I have a sales team, do I want them to be the kind of people that say, we didn't meet our sales goals this quarter, but that's okay, we have Bhagavan, we have our families, we have our health. We tried our best at the end of the day. And so what if we came only 75% up to the goal? The fact is we love working together. We're all nice to each other. We believe in the company. Nonsense. If I'm a CEO of a company, I want my sales team to be stone cold killers. I want them going and doing anything to make that sale so that our company rises. I want Rajasic people on my team. I want them to have that greed where they say, I need to stamp out the competition. We need to sell our products so I can personally gain. My personal ROI is what matters. I want those minded people. So, spiritual seekerhood, then, we say a sattvic attitude, that's not something that works outside in the world. Why am I saying this so clearly right here? So often, people will take a cursory glance at Srimad Bhagavad Gita and they'll say it says ma phaleshu kadachana, that do not look for the fruits of action. And they'll come and they'll give me this logic that Haribhai, when we work out in our companies, there's two kinds of people that work. One person is one that puts their head down and is diligently working, never talks about what they do. There's the other kind of person who any small thing they do, they have to update their LinkedIn page. They're the ones that hang around the water cooler trying to suck up to the boss. And you tell me, Huddy, who rises in a company? Is it the guy that is putting his head down working hard? Or is it the guy that does all these other extra things? Who rises? Therefore, this whole idea in Gita of don't look for the fruits of action, that does not work. It's impractical. They'll dismiss an entire philosophy right there. My counter to them is what? Who said that spiritual seekership has a goal of rising in a company or getting a higher salary? You're trying to fit a round object into a square hole. Saying that this is what my goal is, Vedanta is not fitting my goal. No, what is Vedanta's goal? Am I molding myself to fit that goal? Unless that's my mindset, Pumstvam is not there. I'm going by what I want to do. I'm not changing my mindset to adapt to what this exalted philosophy is. That mindset's to change first. Only then can a sattvic attitude come about. Because Swami Sarveshananji would always say this. The first few years I was here, I would attend all his Devi group, study group, everything. Every single session almost, anytime a higher ideal came to mind, his first thing would be, we must surrender. He said that 100 times in front of me. Surrender is that only way. Surrender of my own ideals. Surrender of my prior thinking. Surrender of my prior goals. Surrender of the self-importance that I give myself. All of that has to be cast aside. If I don't do that, there is not a snowball's chance in Naraka of me striving to gain this sattvic mentality. It's all but impossible at that point. So human birth is rare. Having that pumstvam, even more rare. Sattvic attitude, even more rare. More rare than this is Vaidika Marga Parata. Having this Vishvasa or trust in this Vedic path. Think about it for a second. Do I ever live my life according to the whims and fancies of inanimate objects like books and things? I do what I want to do based on my thinking. But there are times that I have to live by the orders of any kind of object. When you're driving, you pull up to a stop sign. I can't say that, I pay for the roads with my taxes. I bought this car. It's my foot on the accelerator. Why is it that that red octagon with four letters on it tells me what to do? How dare it? It's not about just that red sign right there. It's the power behind that sign. I don't listen to that red sign, Lal Batti will follow after me after that. That power that vested in that entity, that's what keeps me in check. Similarly, if I have this attitude that these Vedic injunctions in Shastra, with its rigid sets of what do's are and don'ts are, I say, no, it's just a book. I'm 2025 modern man, modern woman. I have no reason to listen to it. It's not about listening to the book. The authority behind that book, that Ishvara, that Bhagavan himself, that is what I have to answer to. Upadeshasara, the very first line given by Bhagavan Sri Ramana Maharshi Ji, Kartuhu Agnyaya Prapyate Phalam. That one ruler over me, that Ishvara, gives me results of my actions. He doesn't start with philosophy of Atma is this, Anatma is this, action means none of that. Very first starting point is you and I all have one ruler, gives us results of our actions. Now, this takes a lot of faith to come to. I believe what I can ascertain with my own senses, what I can see, smell, taste, touch, feel. This is what I go by. But here I'm supposed to believe that the most highest entity is one that is completely imperceptible to me. That which I cannot perceive at all is that highest Bhagavan. That requires that Shraddha to believe. Sattva is only inculcated when that firm belief in that Bhagavan is there. And like I was telling the parents during the time that you were in your, right before your parent-teacher conferences, when you were nervously waiting how many parents and who's going to come today, I was having a quick chat with the parents. And in talking about our Devi groups and study groups that we're going to start pretty soon, I said, when it comes to learning then about this knowledge, it seems like us Hindus are far behind. Religions evolve and devolve over time. Sanatana Dharma needs no evolution or devolution, meaning it does not need to change its doctrine to fit any kind of time period. It's perfect the way it is. The practitioners of the religion, however, they evolve and devolve over time. And what we find is when we're so far removed from the homeland, for nearly a couple generations now, practice of our religion will naturally fall away. Whether it's visits to a temple, whether it's frequency of ritualistic activity, whether it's communal prayer, all of this will fall away, and that's natural. The lifestyle here does not sustain that kind of consistency that we should be having as Hindus. Learning also falls away, however. For so many parents in our Balviharas tell me, my kid who is in 8th or 9th grade through the Balvihar program knows so much more about our Hindu philosophy and Purana and Itihasa than I ever knew. And they'll say it half smiling. They're proud of their kids. That's good. But do you see how alarming that is? That look at your first spiritual teachers. It wasn't some Swami. Who's your first spiritual teacher? Your grandparents or your parents? They're the ones that told you these stories of our Puranas, Itihasas, which they mapped and told you what the philosophy is as well. That's where we gained it from. I fear that ensuing generations will not have that luxury. That's why the importance of Balavihar is more outsized as we go with future generations. But even for this generation, then, where is that insistence on that self-study, wanting to know this knowledge? Because I grew up here in Texas, right? In the heart of the Bible Belt. So whichever religion you belong to, you take it very seriously in this part of the country. So I'd see growing up, my friends who their parents were part of Bible studies and everything on a weekly basis. That was deeply ingrained in that we need to have this. Somewhere along the way, however, as Hindus, we found that we're blissfully unaware of so much of our scriptural heritage. We're totally fine with it, though. We want to gate crash into Vedanta, not taking everything else into account. So, Vaidika Marga means is that scriptural connection there? Because, yes, with the pantheon of scriptures that we have, let's look at one basic text 700 verses Bhagavad Gita. How many adults have actually gone through that Bhagavad Gita? Puja Guruji says it's one of those texts that it's a classic text, he says. Classics are those texts that we respect so much that we don't even open them up. That's what Puja Guruji says. But it turns out that's what it is. So that self study, that onus falls on us to want to take that up. That is what Vaidika Marga Parata means. Do I have that gumption to want to go and uncover it for myself? Because the alternative, which we're seeing a lot of now, is people will come and argue with me about certain points of the Vedas, something that they found that's very static, located in one place, and they want to make a mountain out of it and say, oh, this is wrong, isn't it? Who are you or I to say what's wrong or right? Is there a lifestyle that we live that's even close to what that is? Yes, some injunctions given in the Vedas are for a certain time period. That's what some dharmas are. Some dharmas are universal that must be followed. Whether we agree or not, can we raise our intellects to want to understand that? That's living in that Vaidika Marga. Going further, then, after living by that Vaidika Marga, understanding the deep significance of the scriptures, that's even more rare. And for that, thank God for people like Puja Gurudev. That here we are in the 2020s, having access to this knowledge in a language that we understand well, with wording that's been translated so cleanly. And it's so organic in that it applies to our lives where we are right now completely. In the Devi groups, we take up Art of Man Making, Puja Gurudev's essays on Srimad Bhagavad Gita, where he was invited by All India Radio to give a series of lectures, and those are transcribed into 114 essays on Bhagavad Gita. Whatever he writes in those essays from the 1960s, when we study them today, they feel more relevant to us now than they ever did. It's like he's living in 2025 speaking to us. Whether it's talking about the pressures of the world, conflict in the world, internal conflict, expectation, all of this maps so perfectly, showing very clearly that our scriptural heritage is not meant for a certain time period only. It simply is sanatana, eternal, because it addresses any kind of issue. The underlying issue at the end of the day is my ignorance is what led to all of this. That ignorance of my true identity, that immaterial of what time I live in, is completely irrelevant. And thank God that Gurudev's lectures are available to us as well. Straight from his mouth, we can feel, not just understand, feel what the sense of urgency is. When he taught this shloka specifically, the way he would talk about it was, what are we doing wasting time? We only have this lifetime left. Is that our feeling that we have? Imagine it this way, where you're at the airport, and those of you that travel for work, sometimes you go to these no-name cities, Sheboygan, Wisconsin, places that, the fine dining is the Taco Bell and the Arby's, like those kind of places. There's one flight out of there to Dallas a day. If that flight is canceled, your life is canceled. You have to spend it there. There's no like nice hotels to go to nearby either. You've been in these situations. So imagine you're waiting at the airport for that one flight. And if you're like me and you fly American Airlines has this beautiful thing that they do where 20 minutes before the flight boards, they send you an email saying, hey, I know your gate was A19, but haha, it's now changed to D35. That happens to me sometimes. So then you have to gather your bag and you start running. In the next 20 minutes, you got to make it there, or else Govinda, your flight goes and you have to wait for another one. At that point, you're jumping over children, pushing over old people. You have to make the flight, man. It's whatever it takes. Running, running, running. And as you're running to the flight, you look to the side and it says, free shoe shine. free shoe shine. Do you stop? Yes, no? But are you guys not desis? I thought I said free shoe shine. We don't stop. You keep going, no matter how shiny it makes your shoes. Like that, we're born in this human birth right now. We've thought we're at one gate. Vedanta tells me, dude, your gate is something completely different. We have to hurtle towards that gate as fast as possible. In the meantime, things like status and prestige and a nice car and nice friends and people thinking great things of me and looking pretty, all of these things are nothing but a free shoe shine. We've done free shoe shines for lifetimes upon lifetimes. Is it time to throw that away and simply run towards that goal? Because once this flight goes, there is no guarantee we have access to one more flight for moksha. Vaidika Marga means, is there that kind of sense of urgency there? If not, that's okay. Doing good karmas will net me a better life next time, hopefully. I can do the dharmas the right way, and I can be born again and go through a stage of diapers and this and that, and go through one more stage of hardship and earning, one more stage of hopefully coming to this knowledge somehow. That's fine. I can live that way. But do I want to? That's the thing. So, sense of urgency is that Vaidika Marga. Now, what's said at the end here? Muktirno shata janma koti sukritaihi punyairvina labhyate. Punyaihi. Without punya, good actions that are done in the past, na labhyate, this mukti is not possible to be earned. Therefore, actions matter a lot. Now, this is the part I'll bring up before we pause for our discussions. Jnanat evatu kaivalyam, the Upanishad screams. Knowledge is the only thing that gives me kaivalya, liberation. Then people say, what's the point of action then? Because here we find mukti is not possible without lots of punya. Punya is netted by right action according to dharma. Why does action matter then? Imagine there's a dirty room. You enter, it's dark completely. You don't know it's dirty. You turn the light on. Does turning on the light clean the room? Turning on the right light reveals that the room is dirty, reveals to me the true nature of what that room is. Cleaning I still have to do. That's a karma. This is how jnana and karma work as well. Jnana simply shines a light telling me what that truth is. For me to come to that truth, I must purify this mind completely. So it's not enough to say I'm more of a philosophical person. These rituals and pujas and all that ain't really my thing. No, you better make it your thing. If it does not become my thing, there's no way to progress. Without that full, firm faith in that Ishvara, there is no way I come to that sattvic mindset. Without that sattvic mindset, there is no way I come to this knowledge. It's one domino falling after the other. Because as Vedantins, we come under a lot of heat sometimes saying, you guys in Chinmaya Mission, you dismiss pujas and this and that. We don't dismiss anything. We do all of those things. Nitya karmas are also important. It's just that that's not all we do. There is a roadmap that we're giving as well. Because people would criticize Gurudev. For people that don't even do any Nitya karmas and pujas, don't understand anything, you're teaching Upanishads to them, how can you do that? He'd say the time will come when they understand, I want to open up their minds to what Shruti Mata has to offer. Whether it's Bhagavan Shri Adi Shankaracharya Ji or Param Puja Gurudev, they came at a time where completely ritualism was taking over, which was empty completely. There was gatekeeping done and there was no real idea of why we're doing this even. He said, let's bring that intellectual muscle back to this. That was the goal of what they did. So at this point, two things I'd like us to do in our breakout sessions, random breakout rooms. Number one is to answer this one question that I have for you. Where collectively then, as a teachers group that we're meeting, what do we do to keep each other on this Vaidika Marga? Not in a judgmental way of, oh, this person's doing this wrong, they have to change this. What do we do to keep all of ourselves accountable as one family here to make sure that we are on this path towards that sattva, on this Vaidika path. Now, hopefully, I've gone through enough explaining what that is according to Bhagavan Sri Adi Shankaracharya ji. And then in the last 5 minutes, if you could gather your feedback about the parent teacher conference that was there, so that I think our Balvihar coordinators, Bhavaniji and Rameshji, will send out some kind of form or something later on where you can upload your feedback there of how it went for you, the parent teacher conference, how many people came, or what were parental concerns, what were concerns that you have based on the parents you saw, all of this. You can just fill that in there when the time is right, but please be thinking about that at least for the last 5 minutes of this class. So again, that question is, how do we keep ourselves and each other on that Vaidika Marga?
Okay,
So
okay.
hope you had a good discussion. As I was going through, a lot of things that came up were Seva was something that commonly came up. And that is one preliminary step for the Vaidika Marga, is Seva. That holds us accountable in that there are other people depending on me. Therefore, that is something I will stick to. And mm, as Puja Gurudev would often say, Manava Seva is Madhava Seva. Nara Seva is Narayana Seva. So like that. It's nothing but a work of devotion, act of devotion. Even when you look at our Balvihar classes, when attendance is sparse, when you know there's a stage performance coming up, or those, yearly plays that we do, all hands on deck. If I'm the role of Rama and I'm missing 3 classes before we have to go on stage, it's not going to be appreciated. I'm accountable to the other people that are counting on me. So Seva brings that bhava in. That's a great start. And study and things like this are a lot more not as fun. It's more independently focused and there's no praise that comes for it. But that's the way we clear up our doubts. One way of knowing am I making spiritual progress is what is the tenor and the nature of my questions. 20 years into studying, if my question is still, I don't think Bhagavan exists, I have to resolve these things for myself. Either surrendering, accepting certain answers logically, or seeing what are my hangups, impeding me from accepting what the truth is. That has to be done. So, one thing I'd like to end with today is you have Rameshji's form that he's put in the chat. You can fill that out. Do it tonight so that you don't have to worry about it anymore and you have your feedback while it's fresh in your mind. The other thing is, starting next week, we'll start our Devi groups and study groups again for the year. So the ones that Sanjana ji takes up, there's a Devi group that meets at Chitrakoot, Wednesdays 10:30 to noon, exclusively for ladies, and her study group meets on Thursday on Zoom, 7 to 8 p.m. And the text we're taking is Art of Man Making for the Devi groups, and then Self Unfoldment or Sadhana Panchakam for the study groups. Tuesdays. Tuesday is the Saket day. Devi group is at Saket from 10:30 to noon on Tuesdays. Thursdays or Tuesday evenings, study group is 7 to 8 p.m. at Saket. Thursdays, we meet at Sevak's homes for both of these. Devi group is 10:30 to noon. Study group is 7 to 8 p.m. Now, in some other centers, if you want to teach Balvihar, you have to be in a Devi group or a study group. I'm not mandating that because I can't. That's never been our culture in Dallas because we have such a need for teachers. I can't turn anyone away saying that, oh, you haven't come to this. But I highly recommend it. That your own self study is important, consistent study is important. This is the way that's done. So if you feel like what we're doing in Vivekachudamani, you have lots of questions about it, you feel like, man, it's relevant, or you're able to stay awake through half of it, please join a Devi group or a study group. At least give it a try. Okay, no harm in trying that. Anand, you got a question?
No, I mean, I think the point that you raised was the same point that we were also discussing, right? I
Yeah,
mean, fundamentally, like, shouldn't we just keep not shaming them, but keep telling them that, hey, you know what, why don't you do this thing? Why don't you do this thing? You say yourself answered that. We cannot say that because we'll alienate them.
true.
That is a problem then, because Naveenji and I were talking about this, that, hey, we need to start shaming people, saying like, hey, why don't you come for this? Why are you not doing this thing like they do it in India? I think Sunilji was saying in India they do that in mohallas.
10 years ago when we were in chick group, one of our chicks asked Swamiji, saying he lives with a set of roommates and they have a proclivity for meditation and for doing different sadhanas, and that he feels bad if he doesn't sit with them and does it in the living room in the evening time. So he said, isn't that peer pressure? And Swamiji said, dude, that's what's called satsang. So positive peer pressure is a form of satsanga. No harm in positive peer pressure then. It helps. So with that, thank you so much. Have a wonderful, wonderful week ahead. And thank you for your continued service. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om. Hari Om, everybody.